Hello YouTube, welcome to the Loop Line. Back in July, I said this.
In fact, given how crowded many corridors in these places are, a lot of them deserve more than hourly service. This is an argument for building more suburban railway systems in secondary or tertiary cities, which I will discuss in a future video.
Today, I'm here to expand on it. Today, I shall present a model which can be used to build suburban railways in cities that don't currently have one. This is the start of a series where I will be proposing suburban railway schemes for various cities across India. Just to be clear, these trains will still be part of Indian Railways and not a separate system. As with proposals such as this, there is a map involved which I will show you shortly. Throughout this video, I will go through the various routes and stations involved, how and where trains will be stored, and the benefits it carries for trains across the city. As you know from the title, this video is about Bengaluru. Thus, I will compare this plan to a hypothetical Bengaluru RRTS and the current suburban rail plan, and I will give you my reasoning as to why I think this plan is way better and effectively replaces both proposals. As a note before we start, this video is going to be really long, so if you want to go grab some snacks, now is the time to do it. Before we start, it's worth looking at a map of what the railways look like today. From Bengaluru, there are lines going in 6, arguably 7 directions. From the city, there are lines to Mysore, Tumkur/Hassan, Doddaballapura, Chikkaballapura, Bangarapet, and Hosur. The aim here is to provide reasonably frequent suburban rail service to all 6 lines out of the city. To be clear, these are existing rail lines on which we are providing suburban rail service. They are not brand new railways. I will also be proposing changes to train operations on all of these corridors, which we will see as we go through the map. We should also note that there are 3, arguably 4 terminus stations in Bengaluru, which you should know if you watched my video on terminus stations. These are KSR Bengaluru, Yeshwantpur Junction, SMVT Bengaluru, and most recently, Bengaluru Cantonment. Given this is a proposal for a suburban railway, it is only logical that they should complement express service. Therefore, having suburban service at each of these stations is mandatory. In a similar spirit, there is also service included to Bengaluru's Kempegowda International Airport. If you want to better understand the railways here, I suggest you look around this map to see how things are laid out. Trust me, this will help later. I'll link this and official rail maps in the description. Before starting, I need to mention that this plan does not take into account the current proposal and construction for a Bengaluru suburban railway. That plan, for all intents and purposes, is basically a more different metro that runs faster and to places further out. This plan is very different to that, and I'm not considering that while making this proposal, though I will be drawing comparisons later. Here is the map. Before we get into each line, I should mention that this map is multilingual. Every station name and legend is written in both English and the local state language, those being Kannada, Tamil, and Telugu. If you're a local, I suggest you pause the video here to get an idea of what this involves before continuing. I've made sure that none of the lines here have colors that can be confused with the current Bengaluru Metro, so that should help. Lastly, a note for the rest of this video, I will be saying a lot of names over the next half an hour, and I shall do my best to pronounce these correctly. Please point out errors if there are any, I would appreciate it. A big thank you to my friend Arun for helping me with Kannada and Telugu spellings here. Anyway, let's do all the lines first, one by one. Let's start with the shortest line in the system, the 38.8 km long brown line. This line starts at Doddaballapura, which is on the railway towards Anantapur. The line runs south towards Bengaluru. Here we see the first important thing I've done to create this suburban rail concept, infill stations. Currently, the first station south of here is Rajanukunte, over 12 kilometers away. I have added 3 new stations in this section, those being Bashettialli, Doddaballapura Industrial Estate, and Suradenupura. I've not done this everywhere, but they do exist in a lot of underserved areas where land can be developed, but it's currently not due to poor transport links. Anyway, there is a new station at Muddanahalli, around 3 kilometers south of Rajanukunte. Our next stop is Yelahanka Junction, where we will see the key to making this system work. Instead of running into the existing Yelahanka Junction, trains will split off from the existing tracks and enter a junction bypass. This allows suburban trains to completely bypass junction stations, allowing us to run a much higher frequency than if we use the existing tracks here. Trains will continue using existing tracks outside the junctions and will enter bypasses when they approach one. In the case of Yelahanka, I propose a three-level station. The current ground level is at the bottom. The current level of the station footbridge will be expanded to make an elevated concourse, and on top of that will be the platforms for suburban trains. This means that the Yelahanka bypass tracks will be on bridges. For those wondering, the black outline here means the suburban line is on a bypass. So, after stopping at Yelahanka, trains turn southeast and rejoin the existing line towards Baipanhalli. Here, there are a bunch of new stations. Because we are quite close to the city now, it is reasonable to make frequent stops so that the people living in these places have easy transport access. Thus, there will be stations at Surabi Layout, Jakkuru, Rachanahalli, Thanisandra, Geddalahalli, Kalkere Road, Papaya Layout, and Channasandra. There are only two stations on this stretch today, those being Channasandra and Thanisandra. All others are new. For those with questions, I've also attached a link to a map of where exactly I think these stations should be located. South of Channasandra is an interesting place. This is the site of Bayapanahalli Junction, a massive web of tracks connecting routes from Whitefield, Bengaluru Cantonment, Banaswadi, and Hosur. As with Yelahanka, there is no hope of navigating this junction on the surface. Thus, trains will enter a bypass, this time underground. Trains enter the tunnel and stop underground at Bayapanahalli Junction. They then turn north and run one stop to SMVT Bengaluru. It's worth taking a moment to describe what will be happening in this area. Bayapanahalli is where three of the five suburban lines converge. Thus, quite some underground construction will be required here. The first level below the surface would be a large concourse. One level below that will carry the brown and orange suburban lines from the SMVT. On the east side, these lines split, with the orange line going south to Hosur and the brown line turning north towards Yelahanka. The third level below will be the blue line platforms. On the west side, the orange and brown lines diverge north towards SMVT, where the brown line terminates. The blue line will run east-west from Cantonment on one side and KR on the other, and will be one level below the other two platforms. Even though all suburban trains have underground platforms here, the existing platforms will not be removed. More about this later. As discussed, the brown line will terminate underground at SMVT Bengaluru, offering interchange with the orange suburban line and intercity services. That pretty much concludes this line. As I said before, this is the shortest line in the system and demand is expected to be lower than the others. Due to this reason, I propose running a fixed 15-minute frequency all day along the whole route. This is manageable on the tracks themselves and the junctions have been bypassed, so we don't have to worry about capacity issues. The underground terminus at SMVT Bengaluru should be built with crossovers just before the platforms for fast and efficient turnaround of trains. Looking back at the map, I have mentioned the frequencies with these boxes. The number inside reflects the number of trains on that line in 1 hour, usually referred to as trains per hour. So 4 trains per hour is a train every 15 minutes, 3 trains per hour is a train every 20 minutes, and so on. Given the box has a 4 here, this line is proposed to run 4 trains per hour or a train every 15 minutes. Now let's look at the red line, which is longer than the brown line at 64 kilometers, but it's still short compared to the other three. This line will start in the city at KSR Bengaluru station. Similar to SMVT, there will be underground platforms for these trains to terminate. This time, the station will have 2 levels, one underground concourse with connections to all the surface level platforms, and a level below with the suburban platforms. This concourse will replace all the footbridges over KSR station today and will be directly connected to the station's main building and the metro concourses at Majestic Interchange and KSR metro stations. This will allow direct grade separated access for people walking between the Majestic bus terminal, KSR station, the 2 metro stations, and the Suburban Rail station. I should also mention that this will need to be quite deep underground since there are already 2 levels of metro corridors operational here. From KSR station, Red Line trains run northwest to Yeshwantpur, running completely underground. Logically, as part of this, Malleshwaram station will move underground and the surface level platforms demolished. At Yeshwantpur, the mess of concourses and bridges will be simplified. The suburban concourse will have direct access to every platform and the station's main entrance. The current footbridge will also be expanded and directly connected to both the metro concourse and the suburban rail concourse. Similar to KSR station, this will allow seamless interchange between all 3 transport modes. Escalators and lifts are obviously needed here, as the suburban concourse is underground, the railway station is on the surface, and the metro is elevated. Right after Yeshwantpur, trains will turn east and stop at Lottigolahalli, which is also a junction. Red Line trains turn north towards Yelahanka, rejoining the existing tracks. Like the Brown Line, this stretch has three new stations. Trains will stop at Tata Nagar, Kodigehalli, Sabri Nagar, and Allasandra. Then trains will split off the main line and run through the Yelahanka bypass, which I discussed earlier. Beyond Yelahanka, the trains turn east. I have proposed a new station here for easy access to the number of colleges in the area. I couldn't find a better name to call it, so I named it College District. Better names are much appreciated. After this, there are stations at Bethahalsur, Dodjala, and Kempegowda International Airport. Beyond the airport, trains run parallel to the NH44 until Devanahalli station. Just north of here, I propose a new station at Lalgondanahalli. Trains going north will then stop at existing stations in Venkatagiri and Nandi Hills. There is a new station at Chokkahalli just before the terminus at Chikkaballapura. All in all, this route is 64 kilometers long. The towns along the route itself do not have the highest demand, but the airport is expected to generate most of the traffic. This route connects the airport to two of Bengaluru's intercity junctions. Thus, we expect a decent amount of traffic here. People often forget this, but we should recognize that airport workers themselves are a constant source of traffic, since a lot of jobs there are shift based. Due to this, I propose running 15-minute headways on this route all day. One constraint here is that beyond Yelahanka, this route is single tracked, so additional passing loops will be required on this section. Again, due to the airport, I also propose running 24-hour service on this route for 6 nights a week. Nighttime services will run once per hour from 11 pm to 4 am along the whole line. Maintenance for tracks can be done at night once a week when trains are not running. In conjunction with this, airport feeder bus routes will be diverted and timed to run stations along this line instead of overcrowding the airport approach roads. Similarly, the airport shuttle bus will be expanded to be more frequent in conjunction with train schedules. Before we go to the next line, I think it is worth mentioning at this point that I have slightly changed and simplified several station names. Mostly, I have just removed the halt part from several small stations. For example, I simplified Venkatagiri Kotte halt to just Venkatagiri. Similarly, Chandragiri Koppal halt becomes Chandragiri. You will see examples of this on the other lines as well. With that out of the way, let's look at a line that does not even enter Bengaluru. It is more of a satellite town connection, but since it is isolated from everything else, I consider it appropriate to incorporate this into the suburban network. The grey line starts at Chikkaballapura, where it provides interchange with the red line. The line immediately turns east on what used to be a narrow gauge railway all the way to Marikuppam. The line was gauge converted in stages completed in 2013. Since this route runs mostly through villages, I have also added stations near settlements where it would make sense. Under this plan, there will be stations at Nayanahalli, Gidrahalli, Siddalagatta, Sonnenahalli, Hunasenahalli, Upparapet, Chintamani, Doddanatta, and Srinivasapura. The current station at this town is very out of the way, so I propose moving that to a more central location. This is also the point at which the line stops going east and turns south. From here, there are stations at Talasanur, Gotihalli, and Jannagatta. Trains then enter the town of Kolar, making a stop at Kuvempu Nagar near Kolar Stadium. The current Kolar station will be renamed Kolar South. From here, the railway runs parallel to the road. Trains will stop at Hudukula, Chikka Ankandahalli, and Goldfield College before entering the town of Bangarapet. Trains will stop at Bangarapet Junction and turn east on the railway to Kolar Goldfields. There will be a new station at Punith Nagara, followed by existing stops at Chinnakotte, BEML Nagar, Coromandel, Urgaon, Champion, and Marikuppam. Today, the line ends here, but if you recall to the start of the video, I said this. Every station name and legend is written in both English and the local state language, those being Kannada, Tamil, and Telugu. That would imply the line goes into Andhra Pradesh. What is this about? So, Southwestern Railway is currently undertaking a project to extend the Kolar Goldfields line from Marikuppam to Kuppam, creating a second route between Bangarapet and Kuppam. Since there is already an additional route to Kuppam via Bishanattam, this line will only be used by trains stopping at Kolar Goldfield stations. Thus, I consider it appropriate to add this line also to the suburban network as part of the Grey Line. So, I have marked the route to it with the planned stations at Virukashipuram and Dravida University. So, services. Because this will act as more of a regional connector, trains here will run one train per hour all day. This should be an adequate frequency for the many people living in the small towns along the route. This route is also a single track the whole way, but because we're only running hourly service, the existing infrastructure will do. For those keeping track, this line is 141 kilometers long. That about covers the three least interesting lines on the system. Now, let's get into the more important ones. The Orange Line is another cross border route. Let's now go the other way and start in the southeast. Right away, even the start point of this route is slightly questionable. If this were to become a true RRTX replacement, trains would ideally start at Krishnagiri, but progress on building a train line here seems very quiet, unlike the Kuppam route. So, I have assumed the existing starting point at Hosur. If the line to Krishnagiri is built, the Orange Line will be extended to Krishnagiri and be used by suburban trains. If this does happen, the section of line between Hosur and Rayakotai will need curve easing to increase speeds and also be double tracked. Rayakotai itself will acquire a suburban bypass and will be the point at which suburban trains branch off towards Krishnagiri. Anyway, leaving Hosur, Orange Line trains will turn west on the existing line and stop at a new station in Antiwadi. Soon after this is the state border and trains enter Karnataka. There is currently a station at Maranaikkanahalli which has been closed to passengers. I will reopen this station as part of the plan. Trains will then stop at Anekal Road, new stations at Marasur and Chandapura, which will have interchange with several bus routes and a potential extension of the metro's yellow line. Once over the NH44 highway, there are stations at Hilalige, Huskur, Karmelaram, and Bellandur Road. This is when the tracks actually enter built up urban areas, and for some reason, this stretch has no stations. So let's add some. Marathahalli, Karthik Nagar, and Kaggadasapura will see new stations on this route to serve the densely populated southeast side of Bengaluru. Trains will then enter the Baipanahalli bypass and have stops at Baipanahalli and SMVT Bengaluru. I already went into detail on how this area is supposed to work, so I won't repeat myself. Beyond SMVT Bengaluru, trains will stay in the tunnel and stop at Banaswadi station. This is the site of another policy change as a result of the suburban railway being built. I am reorganizing what trains use which terminus station in the city. I will go into this later. What you need to know now is that the existing Banaswadi station will close and move completely underground. Continuing on the Orange Line, after Banaswadi, trains will resurface and join the existing tracks. Similar to the southeast, there are new stations here also. St. Thomas Town, Nagavara Road, and Veeranapalya will be built on this stretch before trains enter Hebbal station. Again, due to the policy change mentioned, Hebbal station will also be used by suburban trains only. More on this later. After Hebbal, we rejoin the red line at Lottigolahalli. Then the line enters a bridge this time, splitting from the existing main line, the Yashwantpur bypass. Trains turn north and stop at HMT Estate, serving the nearby watch factory and is rather close to the Peenya metro depot. The line also joins the existing main line here. There is another new station at AYR layout before Chikkabanavara junction. We are now on the line towards Tumkur. I have not proposed adding or removing any stations on this stretch, though I think these three are too close to each other. Trains will stop at all of these stations, terminating at Tumkur. We are basically done with the Orange Line here. In its current form, it would be 127 kilometers long. Now, this line doesn't really have anywhere convenient to terminate trains midway through the route, so it only makes sense to run a fixed frequency along the whole line. I believe that a train every 15 minutes all day should work just fine, although increasing peak frequency may be useful. All routes involved are double tracked or currently being upgraded, and most stations already have loop lines, so this should be achievable. In the future, a third track can be built to terminate Orange Line trains at SMVT and run service to Kunigal, but that is beyond the scope for today as demand on that side is pretty low. All that aside, now let's look at the longest suburban line in this proposal. The blue line is the longest line in the system and starts at Ashokapuram in Mysore. Ashokapuram is the new terminus built to terminate long distance trains that don't necessarily fit in Mysore Junction. Heading north, trains immediately enter the Mysore Junction bypass, stopping at Chamarajapuram. As I did with the other stations like Malleshwaram and Banaswadi, I am moving this station completely underground. Trains then stop at Mysore Junction and a new station at Bamboo Bazaar. They then rejoin the main line around the Mysore goods terminal. Trains then travel on the existing main line to Bengaluru. Suburban trains make all stops as far as Hejjala. This is another interesting place. Wonderla Amusement Park is quite close to Hejjala station. So I propose building a new branch line from Hejjala straight to the park. This would generate good ridership, be quite cheap to build, and given it's serving a specific place, part of this can be paid for using private funds. This branch will become more useful when we discuss service patterns later. Going further up the main line, we have a new station at Challagatta. This is a good place to explain what's going on with the line in the city. You see, this section of the blue line from Challagatta to Whitefield runs parallel to the Bengaluru Metro's purple line. So I have decided that this route would serve best if it acts as an express alternative to the purple line. This is why most of the stops in this section are direct interchanges with the purple line. Thus, it should be no surprise that this plan will involve closing some stations. If it wasn't obvious from everything else I've said so far, this suburban network will take over all local and memo services in the region. In this case, that would also include certain express trains from Bengaluru to Mysore. Again, more on this later. Anyway, after Challagatta, trains will stop at Jnana Bharati station. This is the best metro to suburban interchange on this side of the city, so I consider this stop appropriate. The next stop after this would be KSR Bengaluru. As you should know by now, suburban trains entering KSR Bengaluru will use the bypass and stop underground. As discussed previously, there is also interchange with the red line here. So, Kengeri, Nayadanahalli, and Krishnadevaraya halt have all been closed on this side. After KSR Bengaluru, trains will exit the bypass tunnel and rejoin the existing railway just west of Cantonment station. Cantonment is obviously the next stop given it serves many intercity trains. Bangalore East, however, is getting closed. Aside from offering no interchange, there are stations nearby on both the orange suburban line and the purple metro line that both offer transport to locals. Next, Bypanahalli Junction. We already went over this. The blue line is on the underground bypass and is at the bottom of the station. Trains will exit the tunnels and stop at Krishnarajapuram. Similar to Jnana Bharati halt, this is also a very good suburban to metro interchange. The next station on this line today is KR diesel locomotive shed. Now, I'm not sure if this station can even be removed, given that removing this stop would cause a political battle with the railway unions. I've not placed this on the map, but I thought this was worth mentioning, and this station should be closed if possible. Hooghly station, like Bangalore East, should ideally be closed. However, given we are trying to alleviate congestion on the purple metro line, we need to serve the highest demand places that the metro line also serves. That includes ITPL, Bengaluru's largest IT hub. If you're going to serve this place, Hooghly station is the closest train station to run buses to. This is not ideal as the train does not serve job centers directly, but it's important that we give people the option to do so that they are not dependent on the purple line. For someone coming from further west, the express nature of this line would absolutely make it faster than taking the metro, not to mention way less crowded. This will also make this place accessible from further out than the purple line's reach. Anyway, that was a long winded way of me saying that we should keep Hooghly station. Moving on, the next station is Whitefield. This is where the shared section with the purple line ends and we leave the urban growth boundary. East of here, trains will stop at all the existing stations to Bangarapet Junction. That includes Devangonti, Malur, Bayatrayanahalli, Tayakal, and Maralahalli. This line will terminate at Bangarapet Junction. Lastly, let's go through service patterns for this route. Because of its length, it will be impractical to run a fixed frequency along the entire line. So, the route would have two services, each running every 20 minutes. One of these is the long distance service running the entire length of the line from Ashokapuram to Bangarapet Junction. The other one is the Bengaluru area service. This will start at Wonderla Amusement Park and run to Whitefield Station. Together, both these services will create 10-minute frequencies in the core section. On the west side, suburban trains make only two stops, and on the east side, the Whitefield Cantonment section is currently being quad-tracked, so suburban trains will have dedicated tracks. Thus, I consider this frequency very much achievable. To accommodate this, I propose that the junction at Hedjala be grade separated so that trains don't have to cross in front of each other. We have the routes, now we need trains and places to store them. Let's go over the trains first. Because these trains will share tracks with Indian Railways, they have to be compatible with that standard. The specifications for this can get quite complex. If you want to read more into this, you can look at RDSO's website for details. To keep it simple, I am going to start with an existing train design and propose modifications to it. The trains we are buying need to accelerate and brake quickly since they will be making many stops, and they also need to be able to hit high speeds up to 130 km per hour. This will be especially useful on long runs like the route to Mysore. Again, more on this later. Believe it or not, we already have a train set that meets these requirements. It's this thing. This is the new generation of MEMU or mainline electric multiple unit trains produced at ICF. These trains have traction equipment and bogies under the train floor. which from my understanding is just copy pasted from train 18. On top of this is a normal memo shell. These trains will be 8 coaches long, around 200 meters in length. They have 2 doors per coach on each side and a total capacity of 2618. This is going to be our base unit. This train is already pretty good, but I'm going to propose certain upgrades to make the system easier to use and better for the passenger. Firstly, the trains will be made slightly wider and the steps to board the train will be removed. The floor inside will be made continuous with no steps and the gangways between coaches will be modified as required. This floor will in turn be compatible with a new standard for platforms that offers level boarding. That is, no step between the train and the platform, making the trains wheelchair accessible. All stations on this map will be modified with this floor height, and other necessary upgrades like addition of lifts and ramps will be done at the same time. Features for other common disabilities also need to be installed at all these stations, such as tactile paving and hearing aid detection loops. Anyway, back to the train. These trains do have toilets on board, but I think they should be installed at stations also. Removing toilets from the trains is impractical here since some of the services will be running for more than 3 hours. So having toilets on board is kind of necessary. In accordance with flexibility, I don't propose fully air conditioning the trains. Having a separate fleet of AC and non-AC units will be very difficult operationally. So I propose that the two end coaches have AC units fitted to them and the middle coaches be as they are. For those wondering, fitting AC onto such a train is not a big problem and can be done, though it will require some modifications to the roof. That's pretty much it for the trains. To sum up, this railway will use the existing memo rakes with underslung equipment. These trains will be modified with the boarding steps removed for level boarding, and the two end coaches will have AC fitted. The train will have two toilets on board. Now let's look at the depots. If you have been paying attention to the map, you would have noticed these rectangles dotted about the place. These are the proposed locations for train depots. Given the service frequencies described, I did some rough calculations and determined that we would need 105 train sets. So I'm going to make depot space for 120. The first depot location is on the Grey Line, near the under construction Viruta Kashipuram station. This depot would have an area of around 20 hectares and be capable of holding 25 trains. This would cater to the Grey Line and the Blue Line. The next location is the biggest depot on the map located near Devangonti. Though this is on the blue line, this would also partly cater to the orange line. Having an area of 28 hectares, this depot would be capable of holding 40 trains. The next location is Dodjala near the airport. This site would be right next to the currently under construction metro depot and would primarily cater to the red line, though a few brown line trains will be stored here as well. Being 16 hectares, this depot would hold 25 trains. The last depot is the most interesting. This takes us back to Bayapanahalli Junction. For reasons which I will explain shortly, this piece of track that trains today use to bypass SMVT station will see no use. So, I propose building two sidings, one on either side of this track, and using them to store suburban trains. Maintenance for these trains can be carried out at the Banaswadi Memu Train Care Center. This will still keep the track usable if necessary, but it gives space for plenty of train storage. Thus, approximately 12 hectares will be used to store 30 trains. We have trains, places to store them, and places for them to go to. You may think we are done. However, to make this work as good as possible, the entire rail network around Bengaluru will require a massive upgrade. To make this project work, we need to do a lot more than just build a few tunnels and order new trains. I could make a whole separate video explaining these in detail, but this video is long enough already. So, I shall go through these rapid fire. Curve easing on the Bengaluru-Mysore main line will be necessary to reduce journey times for express trains. This will also allow increasing speed limits here to 130 instead of the current 110. Same goes for the line to Anantapur as well. Since suburban trains will be sharing several tracks with long distance trains, they will frequently have to enter and exit loop lines to stop at stations. To reduce time delays here, all switches and tracks to access loop line platforms will be upgraded to handle trains switching at 70 km per hour, up from 15 or 30 km per hour today. The same speed goes for the bypass and tunnel sections as well. All these areas will have 70 km per hour speed limits. Achieving this will probably require swing nose track switches, but anyone who knows more can comment on that. Signaling across the whole region will need a massive overhaul, upgrading from absolute block to automatic block signaling across the region and a full system-wide installation of Kavach on all tracks used by suburban trains. All locomotives and multiple units operating in this region also need progressive installation of kavach. Fouling marks need to be moved closer to the switches wherever possible and signaling cables redone. If you don't know what these are, don't worry. For those who do know, you're welcome to share your wisdom in the comments. All priority systems in the region within passenger trains will be abolished. Since suburban trains won't hold up express trains outside junctions anymore, giving every train equal priority makes sense. Priority scheduling between different express trains is also irrelevant here because they will make the same stopping patterns in the region. More on this shortly. As an extension of this, there will be a curfew on freight movements in the area during the day. All freight movements in the region will be restricted between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., and during the day, these trains can be parked at the extra tracks present throughout the region for this purpose, such as at Bellandur Road and Krishnarajapuram. Because of the magnitude of work and operations involved, a centralized train operations facility will be built near the Banaswadi Memu Train Care Center. This facility will handle signaling and communications for the entire suburban network except for everything west of Bidadi, which will be controlled from Mysore. Just because suburban trains don't use them, I am not leaving the existing junctions alone. All of them will get track upgrades to allow trains to enter and exit at 30 kilometers per hour instead of the current 15 or 10 at most junctions. Combined with all the other track upgrades, this should save 15 to 20 minutes on express trains passing through this area compared to the time spent today. These upgrades will need to be done at KSR Bengaluru, Yeshwantpur, Yelahanka, Bengaluru Cantonment, SMVT Bengaluru, and Mysuru Junction. All terminus stations for suburban trains will be remodeled such that the terminating suburban trains do not interfere with express service. The track layouts will be modified to something like this, with the suburban terminus platforms between the express running lines. This will allow suburban trains to enter and exit stations without crossing over the opposite side track. If this is not possible, a flyover may be built for suburban trains to cross from one side to the other. These upgrades will need to be done at Bangarapet, Doddaballapura, Tumukuru, Whitefield, Hosur, and Hejjala. Now let's get to the big reform I've been teasing for a long time. This is a reform involving stopping patterns and terminus stations for all express trains in the region. Basically, all trains that continue beyond the suburban network today will have all their inner city stops eliminated and replaced by one stop at the suburban terminus or junction. This might seem complicated, but let's go through and see what it means in practice. Trains going towards Tamil Nadu or Kerala will terminate at KSR Bengaluru station whenever possible. If this station is occupied, cantonment may be used instead. Because the suburban line going west from KSR runs all the way to Mysore, all express trains in this section will stop only at Mysuru Junction, Mandya, and KSR Bengaluru. Any express train dedicated to serving this route will be absorbed into suburban service or turned into fast suburban service wherever applicable. This includes trains such as Malgudi Express, Rajirani Express, Vodayar Express, and Chamundi Express. For these faster suburban trains, Bayapanahalli Junction and KSR Bengaluru stations will have an extra platform built on the blue line to increase flexibility. This is the third track you see in these diagrams. Anyway, going east from KSR, express trains will stop at Bayapanahalli Junction. I know this station is not called a junction today, but this is a change I am making for an important reason. This station is the best connection point for all suburban trains throughout Bengaluru. Three of the five lines connect here, letting you go basically in any direction. Because of this, Bayapanahalli Junction will become a mandatory halt for any express train going through here. To handle this, this junction will be reconfigured like so, with grade separation, and all switches within this junction will be upgraded to handle trains switching at 45 kilometers per hour, up from 15 or 30 today. To accommodate this, this station will be moved 200 meters east and will have two sets of island platforms with the underground concourse connecting with the suburban lines as mentioned previously. For further consolidation, all express trains that currently use Banaswadi station will be moved to SMVT Bengaluru. And because of how the Orange Line works, Banaswadi station will move completely underground. So, intercity trains that today run from Hosur directly to Banaswadi will instead stop at Bayapanahalli Junction and SMVT if they are terminating there. This is why I use this land to build a depot at Banaswadi. The reconfigured station layout at Bayapanahalli will provide cross-platform transfers for those who need it and significantly boost capacity to all the terminus stations. I should mention that all trains currently using SMVT will continue to do so, and because most trains from there go east, they will be accessible from Bayapanahalli Junction. Utilizing this opportunity, Bayapanahalli station itself will be put on the Amrit Bharat station scheme and better integrated into the metro. If possible, a bus terminal should also be built here for local trips and more flexibility. This bus terminal should be built in conjunction with upgrades to Old Madras Road, including protected bus lanes to quickly get buses in and out of the area. Anyway, express trains turning south at Bayapanahalli will stop at Hosur, Trains going east will stop at Bangarapet and the trains turning north will stop at Yelahanka Junction. This means that several trains would stop at other stations today, such as Krishnarajapuram, Whitefield, and Malur, will all be served by suburban trains only. Express trains going towards Hubballi from KSR Bengaluru or SMVT will only stop at Chikkabanavara Junction. The reason for this is that Yeshwantpur is not directly served by the Orange Line, so it would be more useful if express trains stopped here instead. The Red Line and the Green Metro Line are both accessible from KSR station anyway, so that's not a problem. Sending the Orange Line to Yeshwantpur is also impractical as reversing trains midway through a busy suburban line is best avoided. The express trains here will also stop at Tumkur, keeping with the terminus rule mentioned earlier. This same stopping pattern also holds good for trains going towards Hassan as far as Chikkabanavara Junction. If you cannot tell what stations express trains will stop at, I've included small icons in the map next to their names. In addition to this, there are some stations where express trains may stop today, but it's not necessary that all express trains stop there once suburban service starts running. These include stations like Bengaluru Cantonment, Ashokapuram, Kuppam Junction, Doddaballapura, SMVT Bengaluru, and Yeshwantpur Junction. I've indicated these optional stops in blue and the compulsory stops in red on the map. Outside of these stations, all other stations on this map will be served by suburban trains only. One last thing I should mention here is that there are a small number of trains coming from Bangarapet side and turning north, bypassing Bayapanahalli and going through Yelahanka Junction. Though this is not ideal, the stops at Bangarapet and Yelahanka should suffice, especially since there are connections to two suburban lines at both stations. These trains are few and far in between and are not intended to serve Bengaluru anyway, so they shouldn't be an issue. This reform will be huge in terms of speeding up express trains in and out of the city. As an example, in Chennai, express trains generally run non-stop between Arakkonam and Chennai Central, with very few trains stopping in Thiruvallur. Similar situation between Tambaram and Chennai Egmore. In Mumbai, express trains do not stop between Mumbai CSMT and Thane, with very few trains stopping in Dadar or Kurla only. Trains terminating at Lokmanya Tilak terminus also don't stop after Thane. The same thing happens in Kolkata also. Most express trains run non-stop on the Kharagpur Santragachi and Bardhaman Howrah sections as suburban trains pick up local service. In Bengaluru, the lack of a suburban railway creates situations like this, where train 17209 SMVT Bengaluru Kakinada Town Sheshadri Express operates as a de facto suburban train between Bengaluru and Bangarapet, stopping at KR Whitefield, Malur, and Thaikal. If there was a suburban train to serve local stops here, this train would only have to stop at Baipanahalli and Bangarapet Junction, saving a ton of time. This would also make it easier to access premium trains such as Shatabdi and expresses. Despite slowing the overall journey by 2 to 3 minutes, the extra connections provided here would significantly speed up journeys because passengers don't have to spend 2.5 hours in a cab to reach KSR station. If you are going to compete with intercity buses, this is the way to do it. That concludes all the technical and operational details on the railway side. However, there is one important policy change that needs to happen for such a system to work. We need to establish a regional transport agency or RTA. This is the concept of combining all transport operators in a region instead of being separate entities. Today, BMRCL, BMTC, and Southwestern Railway all do things by themselves, and cooperation is rare to see. The same is true for most cities across India. If we want people to choose public transport, we need to offer a combined single public transport product, not a patchwork of different systems. So, I propose creating a new transport agency for this region. Let's call it RTA for short. Being a combined agency for the whole region, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, and Andhra Pradesh state governments would all have stakes in this RTA, with Karnataka holding majority. This RTA would have control over BMTC, BMRCL, KSRTC, TNSTC, APSRTC, and the Bengaluru and Mysuru divisions of Southwestern Railway. This won't be outright control, but any changes these transport agencies want to make in this region has to be approved by the RTA, and they will make recommendations to better integrate modes with each other. Using this agency as an umbrella, we can pass things like a unified fare structure, timed connections between buses, metros, and suburban rail, and possibly 24-hour service with different modes picking up slack at different times. Each agency can play off their strengths and use the others to cover their weaknesses. If you're in Bengaluru, BMTC totally slaps, but buses are slow for long distance travel. Metro trains work within the city, especially where suburban rail is lacking, but their speed and coverage becomes an issue once you leave the urban area. Suburban rail has the best speed and covers the whole region, but access to train stations will be difficult. Using RTA recommendations, the different bus operators in the region can time buses to connect with suburban trains and metros across the region, offering one public transport product that works together instead of several agencies competing with different modes. This is mainly intended to avoid stupidity like this, where the Karnataka state government wants to extend the green metro line to Tumukur, or this, where the planned blue line to the airport would completely bypass Yelahanka junction. Public transport should be sold as one product, not a mess of different organizations. I'll go more into RTS in a future video, but I'll leave it here for now. I know that this video has been very long, but just give me a few more minutes and we'll be done. All I've done so far is discuss how to do this. I've not yet answered why. The benefits of a system like this go far beyond just transport. Bengaluru currently has the highest car ownership rate in the country. Predictably, this leads to traffic, pollution, and in general, people being unhappy. There is also a phenomenon that occurs in these places whereby if there is excess traffic, everyone tends to drive worse than they usually do. This is observed in loads of places around the world and it's no different here. There is a lot more that can be said about this, I won't go into it now. For those interested, there is a link in the description. As you might have noticed, especially towards the end, this project is not just about a suburban railway. It's an all around transport revolution for public transport in not just Bengaluru, but Mysore, Hosur, Tumkur, Kolar, and the various other towns in the region. It's about making public transport work as a singular product instead of making people navigate a bureaucratic nightmare. When I take a bus, transfer to a train, then to a metro, and walk to my final destination, I shouldn't have to worry about buying three separate tickets and wondering if I'll miss my connection or not. This benefits more people than you would expect. Aside from commuters, there are several other classes of people who cannot or just don't want to drive, but they do it because it's the only feasible option. Anyone who is under 18, though you may not think so, still need to get places, and familiarizing them with using public transport is essential to keeping them as regular customers. The same goes for elderly people who also cannot drive on their own, and using public transport actually helps their health, since regular physical activity keeps them healthy. There are more benefits here, which again we don't have time to go into. For those interested, there is another link in the description. Now, I know that many of you watching will be thinking of the cost. In fact, many of you may have commented saying this will never happen because it's too expensive. Let's discuss that. What is the price you have to pay for a system like this? Let me tell you, it's not cheap, but it is cheaper than the alternatives, at least in the long term. I'm not discussing the costs in detail here because this video would become way too long. For those interested in knowing the actual cost, I've attached a link in the description to my calculations. The total cost, as per my calculations, is 32,341 crore. As I said, it's not cheap, but this is a price Bengaluru can definitely afford. I mean, they're burning 18,000 crores on tunnels that will not solve traffic. I think this is much better. This is why I proposed the RTA in the first place. There is no way that Southwestern Railway will spend this much money on just two of their zones, so investment from states is absolutely necessary. Having an RTA which links these agencies together will make everyone benefit mutually and encourage common investment, which is desperately needed here. There is one last thing I should mention before signing off. This is, in my opinion, the best part about this plan. It's the fact that this project does not need to happen all at once. You can do this one step at a time. Most of the tracks mentioned here already exist and service can be run on them. It will just be slower and you have less capacity. That is what this plan is trying to fix. You can do this project piecemeal and open it one line at a time. This is the reason why I believe this plan is a superior scheme to building an RRTS or a separate suburban railway. First, the RTA needs to be created and needs buy in from the three state governments and the union. Once formed, you can start by initiating the land acquisition process for curve easing and depot construction. Simultaneously, start fencing all necessary routes. Then you order the TBMs and start construction work on the junction bypass lines. As the first ones near completion, you can order the new trains and set them on a queue at ICF. As everything starts coming together, you can start the station and signaling upgrades and open them two or three stations at a time. Track upgrades along the lines and the junction upgrades will need to happen in parallel as well. As each suburban line opens and service improves to critical mass, you can start removing stops from express trains, speeding them up at the same time. You can start reorienting bus service in all the towns around the map to feed into train stations, which will increase ridership steadily. Around the same time, introduce a unified ticketing system and fare structure that combines the systems for the metro, suburban rail, and all the buses that the system connects to. All of this will be controlled and managed by the RTA. The whole time that this is happening, the benefits as each project completes will be felt immediately. People will not read news about a viaduct construction package being completed. They will see their train take an unfamiliar route to work. Passengers traveling on express trains will see their train's journey times sped up 2 to 5 minutes at a time as each inner city stop is eliminated. They will see that instead of having to spend four figures on a cab, they can take a suburban train to their local station, which now sees four trains per hour instead of four trains per day. This is the main reason why I believe this scheme to be superior to a Bengaluru RRTS or the current suburban rail plan. Aside from being cheaper than both these plans combined, this plan spreads the benefits to much more than just the people who will use the suburban trains. This takes the entire rail network and boosts productivity massively, making space for more trains and keeping them accessible from as many places as possible. This plan also requires much less construction than either of those schemes, and most tunneling or bridge construction happens on railway property, so there are no issues with land acquisition here. The important thing to note is that you don't have to stop here. After you build this scheme and start running it, you will find bottlenecks or choke points. Then one can do targeted projects to alleviate those choke points. This railway is not a one and done project. It is a story of continuous incremental upgrades to infrastructure, making space for trains that benefit everyone that uses them. Hopefully, it's obvious why this needs to happen, and I hope it can happen someday. If you can pass this message on to other people, I would greatly appreciate it. The best way to gain support for such projects is to get people talking about it. This plan cannot be considered as a proposal on its own as it conflicts with the current suburban rail plan. If you would like a video on how we can improve that project specifically, let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching through to the end. This is a project I've been working on for around 6 months now, mostly looking at maps and train timetables. If you would like to see such a model applied to other cities, also let me know. That's it from me today. Thank you for watching, and I shall see you in the next loop line.
దయచేసి వినండి రైలు నంబర్ 4240 సూలూరుపేట చెన్నై సెంట్రల్ లోకల్ మూడో నంబర్ ప్లాట్ఫామ్ నుండి బయలుదేరుటకు సిద్ధముగా ఉన్నది यात्रीगण कृपया ध्यान दें गाड़ी संख्या 4240 सूलूरपेटा चेन्नई सेंट्रल लोकल प्लेटफॉर्म नंबर 3 से रवाना होने के लिए तैयार है Your attention please. Train number 42406 Sulurpeta, Chennai Central, local is ready to leave from platform number 3.